Glad to see a lot of people here. Oh, sorry. I got ahead of myself. Do I need to repeat that? Time now is 10:05. I'd like to call the Power Ahead Colorado Oversight Committee to order. And I see Ms. Smith, you just joined, so thank you for being here. Today, we have mostly discussion items on the agenda, but before we get into that, I would like to open the meeting for any public commentary. So are there any members of the public, and Cam, perhaps maybe you're monitoring, are there any members of the public that are interested in speaking relative to anything on the agenda this morning?
Okay, Mr. Chair, we'll give it a second, but it looks like it's only staff in the attendee section. So it looks like no public comment today. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. You'll find that in the agenda packet, attachment A is the meeting minutes from our last meeting in December on the 12th. And I would like to just ask those members of the committee if they had any additions or changes to the meeting minutes. If I hear none, then I will accept those minutes as they are currently written. Any changes or modifications? Okay, none being, meeting minutes are accepted. Thank you. We have three items on the discussion agenda today. The first is jurisdictional support program round two, and we have Greg Meow online. And Greg, will turn over to you to present that.
Thank you, Chair Kondo, and it's good to be with everyone today. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay, is everyone seeing that now?
Yes, we
Great.
are.
Okay. Well, very happy to be here to talk to you all today about our proposal for round two of the jurisdictional support program. We've talked a little bit about this previously, but we're coming back with a more final proposal to hopefully launch this program later this spring. As a reminder to you all, the jurisdictional subaward program is part of the Building Policy Collaborative, which is part of Powerhead Colorado. And the real goal here is to support our jurisdictions' ability to participate in the Building Policy Collaborative and really to provide funding to our jurisdictions that help support their capacity to adopt and implement the building policies and codes that will be necessary to accomplish the outcomes that we're all driving to. So just for context, to remind ourselves of what's happened so far in round one, we were, I think, very successful. We awarded 27 subawards in round one, representing or covering about 85% of the population of the DRCOG region. We obligated about 75% of our total funds that we had budgeted for this program, which is a total of $34.8 million. And most of our awards were to, our larger communities. So most of our awards were over $300,000, ranging upwards to about $2 million for the largest communities. Just to share a little bit about how our jurisdictions are planning on using these funds. The primary use that most of them included within their applications was for staff capacity. So I think we were really successful in meeting that goal of adding capacity at the jurisdictional level. You can see that sort of quickly afterwards, technical assistance and training were highly applied for, with the other uses being applied for a little bit less. And we'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. In terms of the policies, just wanted to share that, what kind of policies our jurisdictions have identified that they want to work on. We've got roughly 60% of our jurisdictions working on energy code updates for new construction, mostly split between the 2024 IEC and more advanced codes from net zeros to the low energy and carbon code. And we have roughly about 75% of our jurisdictions really interested in working on addressing, emissions from their existing building stock either through benchmarking programs or BPS, or trying to apply those types of strategies within the residential space. And then just, this is a sort of last depiction of just who applied for what different eligible use that we had. So some of the jurisdictions applied for all of them, some of them only applied in a more targeted manner. And we can talk a little bit more about that later as well. So we are now moving on to round two. And just a quick note, we are in the very final stages of finishing our contracting with all of the jurisdictions on round one. So if you are a representative of a jurisdiction that does not yet have a finalized contract, we just know that we are in that process, and I anticipate all subawards being fully executed by March or in March, and the jurisdiction's able to start drawing those funds down then. So round two, we have about $8.5 million left in what we had budgeted for the subaward program. And we did spend a lot of time talking to the jurisdictions participating in the BPC, as well as coming to the technical committee and oversight committee a number of times to talk about how should we best spend this money. And here are some of the themes and goals that kind of bubbled up throughout those conversations. First was a really strong impetus to try to provide additional resources and services to all of our communities at the regional level. And really what that means is, there were a lot of asks from various different partners of ours for DRCOG or Powerhead Colorado to be, provide aggregate services to everyone, whether that, means facilitating more working groups or helping coordinate utility engagement. Those were some of the things that kind of popped up. Other key goals that were identified through that outreach process included incentivizing new participation and really trying to build on the regional momentum on core policies, right? Round one, building code updates, baseline benchmarking policies are the bread and butter of what we're working towards. And the more jurisdictions we can get into the BPC to work on those policies, the better. And that really fulfills, I think, the mission of our work plan and our program at large. We also really want to increase the impact for existing awardees. It was identified by a number of our jurisdictions that they all wished they could have just applied for a few $100,000 more to tack on one or two extra items to their work plan, that they really feel like would make their subawards much more impactful, helping them sort of really with a lot of the direct implementation supports that they might not be able to get to otherwise. And then finally, we did want to open this up since we are planning on running this as a competitive round to allow for a few of the more innovative and ambitious applications. Wanting to prioritize bread and butter policy, but also letting some of those jurisdictions that want to push the envelope do so in some manner. So how is that informing then our proposal? First, to the first bullet that I spoke to on the last slide, we are really proposing to meet the sort of request to provide additional regional services, taking $2 million of the $8.5 million and repurposing that to provide region-wide services that would be administered by DRCOG or Powerhead Colorado. The three primary things that have been identified that local governments have been asking for include adding funding to the BPC so that we have additional facilitation support and we can have more policy working groups to sort of work on some of the more advanced issues, and also to dive in a little bit more into some of the implementation challenges for the policies that we'll be developing. So there's a request to sort of add more money to that. A request to help really provide support with utility engagement, knowing that that's a big challenge for a lot of our smaller communities to even keep tabs on what's happening at the Utility Commission, what individual utilities plans are. There was a ask for many of our communities that it would just be really helpful if we could find the right way for our program to help those local governments better engage with and understand what's happening at the utility level. And then finally, there was a request to really try to help stand up some of the residential policy work that we are anticipating or that we'll be working on over the course of the next year. There's a lot of back-end services that for implementation that could be funded at the local level, but actually probably make more sense to administer at a regional level in terms of cost savings, in terms of administrative burden. And we've tentatively gotten approval from EPA to sort of take on that role. And I think additionally, there's a lot of some of these programs will involve data collection and management. And I think some of the jurisdictions have looked to us to try to be trusted partners in helping aggregate and collect and hold and manage that data for them. So the proposal here, and I will pause for discussion on this if there's any questions, is that we allocate up to $2 million of the $8.5 million that we have available for the round 2 to provide these additional regional services.
Okay, I see the floor is open for questions. Emily Bear, go ahead.
Thank you. I just had, the statement that the EPA has given approval to support this program statewide kind of jumps out at me today after yesterday's announcement from the EPA, sort of getting rid of the scientific basis for emissions. I'm just curious how, I don't know, where do we stand on all of that? Like, how does that impact these efforts and goals and the work that we're doing?
Maybe Robert, I don't know if you want to jump in on this, otherwise I can.
Sure. I think there's kind of two things to unpack here. The first is really the statewide thing. It is really not yet fully discussed with you all yet, and obviously we'll have that conversation. But there could be a just very small incremental cost for us to support a program like this, or kind of a subscription model where jurisdictions outside the region kind of chip in so that there's only one administration of the kind of this data on behalf of local governments throughout the state. So EPA suggested we could explore doing that. They're okay with that incremental cost. The other issue really is really two separate things. Whether the current administration has revoked that kind of scientific understanding or not, we are still under a signed contract to execute a very specific work plan, and that is what we are going to continue to do.
Okay, thank you. That was very concise. I appreciate it.
Mayor Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Question, yeah, I kind of had a similar question. How will this work with our goal to meet our energy climate goals here in Colorado if those no longer are accountable? So that means, we can open up more coal producing plants. And, what does this do to our program?
I can hop in again. I don't think it stops the work and the intention of the work, right? And so, progress is not linear, and, sometimes it's a step forward and two steps back. Sometimes but frankly, we just keep on marching. We still, I think, within the limitations that Colorado can abide by federal law and our program can abide by our contracts, we can continue to, advance our priorities, even though there might be some additional challenges.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't want them pulling back from us, and what you guys are asking for today, how many small communities or cities are asking for more money, and the ones who said, hey, what you're offering is not enough?
I
I don't
can,
think we. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
oh, sorry. We don't have an exact number. The We only ended up awarding one $50,000 award and one $100,000 award in our formula round, and so we are really the next slide we can go to. I'll describe a little bit more about our goals for trying to bring in some more of the smaller communities by
Okay.
raising both the minimum tier amount. I think a realistic estimate for us in terms of the number of new jurisdictions, particularly the smaller ones that we might get in, is in the sort of 5 to 10 range. I think there's a number of the mountain communities that have expressed interest and that are actually
Hmm.
participating in the BPC without a subaward, and it's just because the award amount and the eligible uses were a little too constrained and a little too small. Um, so I think we're likely to get a number of them to apply. And then I'm really hoping that we can get a few of the more sort of I-25 north, southwest weld, the Firestones and, of the world to try to hop in as well.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Executive Director Rex, I saw you had your hand up momentarily.
Yeah,
Did you wanna
Mr. Chairman,
chime
thank
in?
you. I pull it down, but I guess now that I've unmuted my mic, I will say that I just wanted to respond to those two comments that were received or questions. I mean, listen, us in the air quality space, announcements like yesterday just drive us absolutely bonkers, of course, right? I mean, I serve on the Regional Air Quality Council, and there's some issues associated with the state implementation plan and our, current ozone emissions and where we sit that we had to reevaluate exactly what's happening in that space. But stuff like this, this program, and it's like Robert said, I mean, we have, a signed agreement in place and we're moving forward with the scope. And quite frankly, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but the point of contact that we have at EPA has been absolutely wonderful in this endeavor, and really great to work with. I will say that even there are messages, there are elements to this program which is not in conflict with some of the messages coming out of the current administration, right? With regards to energy efficiency, right? I mean, I think, or even workforce development and excuse me, and the opportunities this grant provides for those types of things is something that I think they appreciate, and we're moving on.
All right, thank you. I did have one comment and a question. Going back to slide 7, I'm really impressed that Adams County and Arapahoe County have really leaned in, so to speak, in terms of participating in multiple pillars. So that's quite impressive. My question has to do with slide 10. Uh, first sub bullet where it refers to Lotus. Are we talking about the Lotus software company? Are they,
No.
what is that, Lotus exactly?
Sorry. Lotus is our current facilitation. It's Lotus Sustainability and Engineering. It's our existing contract with for facilitation services for the BPC. So all of the BPC meetings that we run and have been running are being that work is all being led by that lead consultant.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I just saw that and was curious what Lotus we're referring to. So thank you for explaining that. All right, back to you, Greg, for the rest of the presentation.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. We'll be going into, as I mentioned to Mayor Douglas, the additional parameters and design criteria for round 2. So, we identified that the goals beyond providing, more regional services through the Powerhead Colorado program, included in bringing in, as many new participants as possible, particularly probably amongst the smaller jurisdictions. Then also trying to allow for some of the more additional, more innovative envelope pushing applications as well. So in order to accommodate that, there's sort of two things we're suggesting or proposing within the round 2 parameters. The first is to ease or flex open the eligible uses a little bit. So here you can see that we are proposing There's a few things that we didn't, allow in round one that we're hoping to allow in round two. Those include, non-capital costs associated with demonstration projects. And really what we're responding to is a request by a number of the jurisdictions that are interested in municipal electrification plans for facilities. And we've said, we think that is a good idea as long as there's a demonstration element to it, right? That the municipality is demonstrating leadership in developing this plan and has, some work plan in place to have some community engagement to really build buy-in for these types of building improvements and policies that would support these building improvements. Additionally, with regards to some of the eligible uses that were not applied for as much, we are trying to highlight and encourage as many jurisdictions as possible to apply for permitting support, not for new systems, but for addressing their existing policies to make sure that electric equipment can be permitted as quickly and on the same basis as gas equipment currently is. And that is something that a number of our contractors have identified as continuing to be one of the major challenges that they run into. And then a few of the other eligible uses just include potentially participant support costs. So for jurisdictions that adopt a building performance standard, perhaps we would allow them to provide subsidies for compliance or initial compliance periods with those types of policies. And then really the last two bullets speak to better connecting the policies that our jurisdictions will be adopting to other supports that might address some of the negative consequences that may be associated with these policies. So to the extent that we are worried about displacement and or health, working to figure out how best to coordinate between like the buildings office and a local health department to make sure that we're providing safe and healthy housing. I think there's a lot of support that we're looking to provide for jurisdictions that are interested in doing that. And then finally, the final bullet really speaks to those innovation criteria. Things that are, again, maybe not primarily about building electrification, but maybe addressing some of the concerns that elected leaders or residents might have around sustainability associated with fully electrifying buildings. And what are the policies and programs that we need to put in place to fully address those types of concerns. So that's some of the new eligible uses that we're proposing to allow. And then the other lever that we're hoping to pull to incentivize new participation is to increase the minimum funding. And so we are proposing 3 tiers of funding in this round, from $250,000 to $750,000 as the max. And this is in response to, as I mentioned before, hearing that our round one minimum was not big enough to incentivize participation. And also to try to have tiers that are sufficient enough to really allow all those jurisdictions that could have used a little more money to actually, procure services or do something. It's a large enough award amount for them to really utilize that award fully. And meanwhile, the larger tiers would allow for some of those smaller to mid-sized communities to apply for, and even the larger communities to apply for additional funds as well. And just to share what that means in terms of how many awards we could potentially make within the situation, that is up to 34 total awards. So if the tiers range from 100 to 250, 250 to 500, 500 to 750, and everyone came in at the low end, we would still be able to make up to 34 additional awards with this amount. Less if people, if all the applications come in at the high end of those tiers. In terms of the other aspects of running this program, we intend to basically merge the subawards that we're making. So any existing applicant, we would, if they are awarded an award in round 2, we would merge those two awards into one contract, and we would have a single contract that we would manage. And so in order to do so, we are maintaining the same criteria for participation, that you're a DRCOG jurisdiction, you participate in the BPC, and you've expressed your commitment to furthering the goals of the program. Similarly, we're not asking for any new application materials. The application process would essentially be 95% the same, with the only difference being really the need to identify a funding tier and write a work plan that explains the costs associated with it. Because this is a competitive round, we are going to do we are planning on scoring all of these as staff. And so here is the proposed evaluation criteria, from quality of application all the way down to demonstrated need and new participation. We've had a number of conversations with our local partners, which is how we landed at this relative distribution. But what we like about this is that there's a lot of flexibility in here to account for, new participation, balancing new participation versus balancing awards to existing jurisdictions that already have them, that want to do, stretch type activities. And so to score those, we're proposing to stand up a review committee consisting of DRCOG staff and local governments, with the caveat that we would not allow local government participation in that committee if they are planning on applying for in round 2. And our goal would be to score those projects in June and bring all of our proposed or recommended projects through the committee process in July. So this is the proposed timeline that we're hoping to run. We would love to open this opportunity up in April and keep it open through the end of May. So roughly a 60-day period. Score all of the applications in June, and so that we can come to the committees and the board for approval in July, and hopefully begin contracting or amending existing contracts in August. And that is everything I have on round 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Meow. And I'm assuming that you would like to receive some feedback on the second part that you just presented. So if so, I'm gonna go ahead and open the floor for Q&A comments. Yes, Ms. Baird.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. This looks great. I like the idea of including local governments with DRCOG staff for the selection committee. And I'm assuming when you say local governments, you mean local government staff, right? The experts. Okay. Yeah, that would be my feedback, that that seems like the expertise we want to tap into. My question is on the funding tiers. So if there's a local government who say 50,000 wasn't enough, but they would fall into the 250,000 tier, are there then levels within that, or is everyone going for 250? Okay, it looks like tier 1 includes 100,000, but just wanting clarification.
Yeah, so I appreciate the question, Dr. Bear. Yes, the tiers that we're proposing are ranges of 100 to 250, 250 to 500, and 500 to 750. It does, I think, with any subaward opportunity, always incentivize. There's a natural inclination for people to build up to the max. We are really hoping to encourage reasonable work plans, and that is why one of the scoring criteria is sort of the overall quality and the reasonability of the funds requested to activities that have been identified, so that we can account for any applications that seem perhaps a little bit unreasonable in terms of where they're how much money they're applying for. But we would really be encouraging our jurisdictions to just build a really reasonable budget within this, within any of those tiers, and have a really strong narrative around, justifying the costs relative to, the budget that they've identified.
Yeah, okay. So then my other question is in the first round, I think that municipalities were able to partner together if they wanted to combine their money. Are we allowing for that in the second round? And then also does the size like kind of still apply so that, if you fell into the lower group originally, then you have to kind of stick in that lower group, or can they apply for like the 500 to 750,000 if they have like a big project?
Yeah, I think we will be trying to the great questions. I'll just the partnership question first. We are happy for folks to apply in partnership. We are only accepting, or the plan would be to only accept one application per lead applicant. We don't want to make or for partnered applications, we would ask that they only submit one full application. We don't want to have to try to balance 5 applications with one jurisdiction participating in 5 and trying to balance that out would be too much. So I think, that's why, for partnered applications, they would be allowed to apply within any of the tier ranges. And again, I think that's where we'll be trying to make sure that the application fully justifies, the costs associated with each, with the tier that they've applied for. But certainly the more jurisdictions or the larger the jurisdiction, I think that will weigh into the reasonability of the budget request. And that's how we would try to address that. And sorry, could you remind me of the second question again?
Well, I think you kind of touched on it, just that if, originally the municipalities were kind of fell into a category of eligibility based on their size. And I'm wondering if that still applies. Like if they are one of the smaller ones with a big project that could bump them up into the next category of funding, are they able to apply for that, or they're still, hampered by size, growth, whatever?
No, I think we are. We have not included jurisdictional size as a criteria. I think within the scoring criteria, there's like the demonstration of need, which may swing either way, I think, on that criteria. Either, it could be a small jurisdiction applying for a larger amount because they really need it, and that would score very well. Or it could be, a larger jurisdiction applying for a larger amount but have not really demonstrated their need for that, and I think they would score low. So I think that hopefully our scoring criteria will allow us to allow jurisdictions to self-select into what tier they want to apply for, with the understanding that I think what you'll see here on the slide is that from what we heard from our jurisdictions, we are budgeting for more awards in the lower tier amounts. That is not set in stone, and there's many different ways we could math out the relative distribution. But I anticipate that most jurisdictions, if they're applying individually, will be applying within that, tier 3 or tier 2 range, whether they are new but small, or they are larger but they only have a few additional things they would like to add on to their work plan.
Yeah, thank you. I like this. I like that they were being innovative and kind of different with the evaluation criteria, and I think this looks great. Thank you so much for this.
Next up is Councilmember Spear.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation and all the work you all continue to put into this. My main question was just around the scoring criteria. Could you talk a little bit more about what the overall quality of the application is, and kind of what goes into that category? I know you touched on it in your response to the last one. Just wondering for a little more detail there.
Yeah, and I think, we didn't include the full narrative description of what we meant by this, and certainly within the final policy, we'll provide more guidance to the jurisdictions in terms of how we'll be scoring all of this. But for overall quality of application, um, this is addressing one of the challenges that we had in round one, which is that there essentially that there wasn't a strong narrative or like conceptualization of the project that the jurisdiction wanted to do. And so we had to do a lot of work really helping our jurisdictions to conceptualize, what does it mean to, how would you hire a staff and work together to support them in implementation and think through all the different, things they would need to do that. So in my mind, overall quality of application kind of speaks to the narrative and how well tied it is to the costs, as well as to, the gap or need that's been identified.
And that seems different from say feasibility or likelihood of success.
Yes, yes. Feasibility and likelihood of success is really intended to speak more to, I think, the ambition of the proposal, and to try to give weight to proposals, particularly from, to give weight to proposals that are focused on the bread and butter policies and making sure that that we're helping fund, provide the necessary funding to make sure that, our initial policy goals are being met.
See that Robert Spots has his hand up. Did you want to add to that?
I did not. I think I'm going to switch subjects on you.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I know that there'll be more more guidance in the official notice with all the criteria and things. I think just making sure these are really tight for the jurisdictions feels like the only feedback that I have. This is, it's all great. But I think that there from the descriptions, which I know are not the final ones, there's a little bit of kind of squishiness between the different categories, and just making sure that folks can be really clear on that, I think will be helpful in their ability to generate quality applications. Thanks.
And quickly,
So
I will add that our plan or intent is to, beyond publishing, obviously, the full policy parameters, to run a webinar opportunity shortly after the opportunity opens to answer any questions about, even those well-written and well guardrailed definitions. I'm sure there will be questions, and we'll make sure to have an opportunities to address those questions in person.
So I also wanted to chime in. I felt the same as Councilmember Spear. It seems to me that bigger municipalities, jurisdictions may have the horsepower to actually do really nice applications, as opposed to, say, a small mountain town or a northern town. So my gut, just to share this with the group, was maybe drop the quality of application to 10% and bump up ambition and innovation to 20. Again, this is just my gut feel, but Mr. Spots.
Thanks. I just wanted to kind of circle back and flag that. So we're going to take this conversation and turn this into a policy, right? A kind of typical grant policy that you board members are very familiar with seeing. Before that, we're going to the board workshop at the first of next month. So just wanted to just kind of circle back on the $2 million off the top thing. I know that can be occasionally, an interesting conversation, the money staying at DRCOG rather than going to the board. We do feel like we are responding to very specific requests from our stakeholders and the technical committee. And really, it's a way of providing additional services to all local governments without having to go through a competitive process. So kind of foot stomping that, as well as asking for any recommendations. I know Director Spears always getting my language in line so we can present things the right way to the larger board.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the floor? Okay, seeing none,
Oh,
I would
sorry.
like to-
I was trying to raise
Oh.
my hand, didn't quite get there.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, for me, it doesn't, that $2 million doesn't feel like an issue, but I was gonna ask the other directors what they feel about that. If it seems like something that might be a sticking point, I don't, it doesn't raise any flags for me.
Yeah, it didn't raise any flags for me.
Thank you. I don't have any heartburn over it either. Thank you.
Any other comments from members? Okay. So with that, I would like to move on to the next item on our discussion. Again, Mr. Meow will present. It's the Building Policy Collaboration, otherwise known as BPC Roadmap.
All right, thank you, Director Kondo, and I'm just pulling up my second screen. All right. So, is that coming through for everyone now? Perfect. Well, very excited to be here with you all today again to talk about the first major deliverable of the BPC and of our program, which is the Building Policy Collaborative Roadmap. We are currently in the final stages of final edits on that and hopefully going to design soon. But we wanted to preview this with you so that you have, so it's familiar to you a little bit when we do come to you with the full roadmap for approval. So the Building Policy Collaborative Roadmap really it establishes a regional vision for buildings. And this is what the vision is that we have developed with our local jurisdictions and local staff, really identifying that we want a region where buildings are efficient, comfortable, affordable, resilient, and eliminate energy-related pollution. And we think that this is possible when buildings are built, with quality construction, and there are upgrades made to those buildings guided by 4 key principles. Those principles being reducing energy waste with good insulation and air leakage prevention, using efficient and right-sized electric equipment, using smart energy systems to store and strategically manage energy, and to power buildings with clean electricity. And so you can see that the vision really touches on kind of all the major key aspects of building and grid level interactions to try to holistically address the climate pollution that comes from our building sector. So what is the roadmap? Well, the roadmap is really a long-range planning document that's very, I think, common amongst the DRCOG, similar to the Vision Zero plan. It builds on our preliminary and comprehensive climate action plans and Metro Vision and the economic development strategy to establish a vision for how local governments can set expectations for buildings to meet our region's environmental goals while protecting health and affordability. And to do that, it describes near and long-term policy measures that reduce carbon pollution and enhance efficiency of new and existing buildings. And it was prepared with a lot of feedback from staff here at the program, as well as local governments, sustainability and codes officials across the region. And so why do we need a roadmap? Well, this really just speaks to the fact that pollution from buildings is, a major or the major contributing factor to climate change and experienced in the region. Over half of carbon pollution in the region comes from energy used in residential and commercial buildings. And so what we're hoping to do through this roadmap is to provide a regionally consistent policy framework to address that building-related pollution. And help reduce policy complexity and streamline compliance and accelerate, the collective impact across the region. And so the roadmap is really just intended to help local governments align their efforts with each other and with other state and utility-led efforts that are already underway. So the goals of our roadmap, as I said previously, to establish that regional vision that I shared in the first slide, to communicate why working to reduce pollution from buildings is important. We think that this is an important communication document for for elected leadership, for to our communities, to build sort of communal collective buy-in for why we need to do this. To highlight building policy options for new construction and existing buildings that provide all of our communities a pathway to accomplishing the regional vision, and to foster alignment in education across governments, the building industry, community organizations, and the public to support these policies. So the policy roadmap is not a policy itself. Instead, what it does is it identifies that framework and pathway for local governments to work towards the regional goal. Through the BPC, we will be developing model policies that support that framework, those being, building performance standards and benchmarking policies for commercial buildings, and policies that essentially do the same things for residential buildings, as well as policies that improve our new construction sector. And the roadmap framework really just provides local governments with a understanding that there's a need to develop policies that address kind of all three of those sectors, and where they can start, and what the ladder of policy improvements looks like to holistically reduce emissions from each of those sectors. And those just being, again, our existing residential buildings, our existing commercial buildings, and new buildings that are being constructed. And so that's what this slide speaks to. The roadmap encourages all of our jurisdictions to adopt building codes for new construction that improve energy efficiency and expand access to electric equipment and appliances. Establish policies that help make more transparent for homeowners and home buyers and residents in general how energy efficient their buildings are, and to encourage them to make the right types of improvements to their buildings. And in policies that for existing buildings that support incremental building improvements, such as performance standards or equipment standards. The priorities that are identified within the roadmap are, in addition to the sustainability goals that we're working towards, but affordability, first and foremost, clean air, improved quality of life, and resilience. And so we are currently finalizing our draft of this, and we will bring a full copy of the planning document to you for review and consideration in the coming months. And so that is all I have to say about the roadmap, but I'm really excited for it and really excited to share the final version with you as soon as we get it.
So at this time, I'd like to open the floor for any comments or questions. And Councilmember Bear, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. I just want to say thanks for this update. I know it's a weird time to be alive in the climate space, and the decarbonization space. So, I am happy to see this moving ahead, and again, happy to see you working with the experts in local government staff. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes next. And I imagine ourselves in a year from now or 10 years from now appreciating the work that was done, continued now. So thank you.
Mayor Douglas, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair Kondo. Yes, I appreciate what you guys have put together here. We are still getting pushback from home builders about electrification. They still want to have it where it's a choice of gas or electric. I'm really for giving the homeowners a a choice at the beginning, what they would like, and give them an example of the quality of life with one being in your life and the other, and how that affects your health. I think that should be something that we hopefully we can incorporate to just get people to understand what our mission is. I know we talk about affordability, clean air, and improving quality of life, but what does that look like? I don't know if this body can take that a little further. So when people have the opportunity to put electrical equipment or appliance in their homes versus gas, that they actually get a true evaluation of what things look like. So, but I do appreciate what you guys are doing, because it does make sense and it does matter. So thank you.
If I could just chime in very quickly, Chair Kondo.
Go ahead.
Just really appreciate the comment, Mayor Douglas. And yes, we are 100% on board with you in terms of developing the right resources to help make very tangible to homeowners the benefits of choosing, electrification, and the benefits of the policies that support that. And it is, I'm eager for you to see the full roadmap, because we certainly do identify the health benefits and costs associated with different types of equipment, and how. And I think we present that in a manner that helps people understand, what the logical progression is in terms of, why they, how they should make their decisions. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
And next, Councilmember Stewart, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have anything to say other than this sounds great. I think you've all done a wonderful job here laying out this initial roadmap. Look forward to seeing it continue to come together. And sure that we recently made some pretty significant electrification changes and things too. So if there's anything you need or any way we can be helpful, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, any other members of the committee having any comments or questions? Okay, none being, I'll say my last words here. I think Mayor Douglas actually brought up a really good point. I'm sorry. Ms. Chanel Smith, go ahead, ma'am.
Sorry, I was just going to mention everything looks well to me as well, but my only question would be, how are all these things being defined, or how are, and I mean that, such as affordability, clean air, improved quality of life, and resilience, how are we defining this?
I don't unfortunately have the roadmap in front of me to define it, but I think that what we're trying to define here with affordability is everything from addressing energy burden for low-income renters to upfront costs to ongoing operational costs, and understanding what are the policy implications and what can we do within the policy space to address that, and what are the programmatic implications, right? Sometimes we can't. There's no perfect policy in my world. And I think that that's why I really am so proud that our program has Max program as part of it, the low income support program. There are, no matter how much we tailor our policies, there are always going to be edge cases that or potential negative consequences, and that's where what we need to do when in our policy development, and what we need to support our localities in doing, is to understand what those are, when they might arise, and understand what are some of the programmatic needs that we'll need to have to address that. We have some supports that we've developed within our program, and that doesn't mean that there won't be some need at the local level to continue to address those challenges as well. So, I think we're trying to make sure that this is eyes wide open as it relates to, what can we actually do at the policy level relative to each of those priorities. And then what do we need to do either through complementary policies or complementary programs to address some of those other challenges.
Thank you.
So my comment, and actually Ms. Smith kind of hit on it as well as Mayor Douglas, is just exactly that. You have, I think when you're putting in a technology that is reliant on electrical power source, it's really understanding what that ongoing variable cost will look like to consumers. And Mr. Muriel, you said it correctly, eyes wide open, and I think also allowing for consumer choice in this matter, I think is really important. So those are my comments. And if there are none others, I see Councilmember Spear, you still have your hand up unless you want to. Did you have any last comment there? No, you did not. Okay. So with that, we'll move on to our third and final item on the agenda. And that will be a presentation from Mac Prather. He's going to talk with us about the Advising and Innovation Program updates. So Mac, you're up.
Thank you very much, Chair Kondo. Just getting my slides pulled up for you all. I hope you can see that. Let me know if you can't. Thank you. Very excited to be here with you all this morning and give you an update on our incentives and advising programs, as well as our innovation grant program. We've talked about all of those program areas in past meetings, but really we're getting closer to implementing these and getting them out in the community. So you all have been engaged and seen that great communications work, the policy and municipal support that Greg is leading that we just talked about. And that's starting to lead towards a lot of interest in our programs from the community, from the municipal staff that's working with Greg. So we're getting the emails, we're getting the interest, and we're very excited to start getting these services out into the community. So we'll be starting with an update on our incentives and advising program, a little bit of a reminder of who's assisting with that, the goals of that program, and where we are today. And I'm going to hand it off to Luke Charbonneau, our Senior Program Specialist, who's supporting this program to give that update.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, Mac. And hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. Happy it is Friday, and I'm excited to provide the latest on our program. My name is Luke Charbonneau. For those of you who have not yet had a chance to meet, and I'm supporting the incentives and energy advising portion of our work. At a very high level kind of reminder, this is our $59.6 million program area, which contains incentives intended to offset kind of the cost of purchasing cold climate heat pumps and similar equipment. And this is very in tandem and supported by energy advising, which really helps folks navigate the program's various offerings, as well as kind of take advantage of all of the programs across our region. This program is being implemented by Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, or VEIC, and we're working day in and day out alongside them, really designing and launching this program to be as effective and impactful for our region as possible. They are supported by Brindle Group, which is their local engagement and coordination support. Brindle's very well connected to the industry and all the stakeholders across the region. Very thankful to have them supporting the program. Similarly, Group 14 is also local, boots on the ground, but the engineering level of support for kind of more complex sites, complex participants that need that kind of more granular engineering level of review and support. They're also helping make sure that high quality installations are taking place. So really supporting contractors in designing and installing equipment in the correct way. With that, we have been very hard at work since kicking off the program late last year. I think we can jump to the next slide. Here's a snapshot of where we're at, just kind of simplified snapshot of our overall process. As you can see, we're very much in the midst, the throes of our kind of detailed program design, working very closely with VEIC on the real nuts and bolts of the program. So really taking a good hard look at incentive levels, equipment types that we want to incentivize, and sort of the delivery channels through which to get that done. We're very much meeting with stakeholders, gathering input, and really using data and contractor and customer feedback and experiences to inform the stage of the process and really help hone in that really effective program design. Our internal deadline to kind of have everything ready for the public is March 31st. I think another way of saying that is that we really want to have all of the infrastructure established so that we're ready to begin processing and paying incentives by Q2 of this year. We don't anticipate having all of our incentive types available at that launch. We're kind of prioritizing a couple to get out there to start, and then other measures and kind of delivery channels likely being staggered and launching later throughout the program term. Of course, any of those dates, once they kind of get finalized and are more concrete, we'll circulate that to this group. But again, aim to have everything buttoned up and ready to go by March 31st for that Q2 public launch. We can jump to the next slide. Thank you, Mac. To go slightly more into the weeds on kind of the different avenues that we are exploring with the EIC, wanted to kind of cover our approach to incentives. So again, these incentives are really being designed to ease the cost difference between purchasing and installing traditional gas furnace and air conditioning equipment against the more efficient heat pump technologies. Hopefully, the aim of these incentives are really to help folks kind of overcome that cost barrier and accelerate heat pump installations across the region. Cold climate heat pumps are our main priority, but we're really keeping heat pump water heaters and rooftops in focus as well. So we're really in the process of weighing all of these options with the VEIC to see which incentives would be the most effective in which channels, but we're narrowing in on the options that we have here on the screen. I think industry terminology very much uses this stream analogy, and I think sometimes it's kind of helpful to paint the whole picture. So at the beginning of the stream, you have the manufacturer, so the people that actually, create this equipment, they manufacture it. In the middle of the stream is the distributors who actually stock it and sell it to contractors. And then at the end of the stream, you have the business or home in which this equipment is installed. So kind of that's the zoomed out version of the whole stream. And we are specifically looking at downstream incentives, which go directly to home or business owners. These are also assignable to the contractor completing the work, provided that they pass this incentive along in their kind of final invoice to those customers. The benefits of this method are really the visibility of the incentive impact to the end users. There's really an ability to kind of target specific areas and building types with downstream incentives. And also kind of later on in program design, we're going to be able to use downstream incentives to really address the custom nature of a lot of large multifamily and commercial properties where The electrification solution's not necessarily so clean cut and really needs like a custom approach to the incentives. Another avenue that we are actively exploring and excited about are incentives direct to contractors. So we really hope that this incentive method can kind of help alleviate some of the soft costs associated with correctly sizing and commissioning equipment. But we really also hope for this to double as a third-party verification of, high quality work that these contractors are doing. The aim of this is to, make sure that the customer has a really great experience and that the installed equipment is set up to succeed, basically, perform at a high level, and really have the good word of heat pumps continue to be seen and spread. Last but certainly not least, looking at midstream incentives. So again, talking about that stream, these incentives are going directly to the distributors who stock and sell this equipment to contractors. Tons of benefits to this approach, namely kind of having the correct equipment being stocked, which really helps to kind of transform and in some ways automate the industry. I think the ideal being if efficient, all electric equipment is, available to contractors and appropriately priced. Some of that purchasing and installation really starts to happen a little bit more automatically. And so hopefully those incentive dollars have a broader impact. We really see this as a valuable kind of market transforming and really scalable method of incentive dollar delivery. So I think the other thing to mention on kind of the midstream side is that the distributors really have these direct, very daily relationships with the contractors. Trust is established. They're, in and out of their facilities all the time. And also, midstream distributors, provide training and resources to these contractors. And so building the relationship direct with those distributors, I think can kind of have that benefit as well to hopefully reach through to those contractors and really continue to scale up heat pump installs. As I mentioned earlier, we're very in the midst of kind of outreach and stakeholder engagement specific to midstream, really getting connected with local distributors, manufacturers, contractors involved in that process, and then tapping in as well to other midstream programs in Colorado, XL, Energy, PRPA, and Tri-State to hopefully hone in on what's going well, what's not going well, and kind of how can we best work together and really position Colorado to succeed in the midstream market. We can jump to the next slide. Awesome. Yeah, all of this technical and incentive dollars supported by the human touch of energy advisors. So having a kind of background in energy advising myself, I'm really excited about this portion of the work and continue to be excited about kind of our North Star, which is this no wrong door approach. No wrong door, in my view, is really meeting customers where they're at, truly regardless of, if they are or are not eligible for Powerhead Colorado incentives, no matter where they're at geographically or maybe most importantly, where they're at in their process. Are they just starting to explore heat pumps as an option, or do they really need, engineering level review to, electrify their portfolio? Kind of meeting folks where they're at. And I'm very hopeful that these advisors can be a value add in that they not only help folks walk through kind of the Powerhead Colorado offerings, but also really help them leverage and stack other programs in the region, but also outside of the region. Let's also add value across the state, hopefully be able to provide a warm handoff to, other programs outside of the region, say Fort Collins or Grand Junction or Colorado Springs. And really we're looking to accomplish that through these tiers that are shown here. Tier 0, everybody has access to our kind of self-service web-based resources. There's a lot of resources there now, but they are going to continue to be added to. And this is, again, kind of self-paced. Anybody can access those and do it at their own pace, but provides kind of the highest level, start to looking at your energy needs. Tier 1, we see this as an entry point. Think of it as kind of a 1-800 number or a really accessible email address that can kind of be that door for anyone. So maybe they're saying, hey, is a heat pump right for me? And if so, what kind of steps do I want to take? Or again, I really need to electrify my large multifamily building, and maybe that can be triaged and redirected to kind of subsequent tiers of advising. But that tier 1 is kind of that catch-all, really accessible entry point to exploring heat pumps as an option. Tier 2, this is where some more technical details and expertise start to come into play. So think of this as kind of, we need to start reviewing, equipment that you're proposing to install, address a little bit more of those program specifics, and really start to hone in on what incentives that you're eligible for in and out of Power Ahead Colorado. Tier 3, kind of the highest level of support that we're going to be offering, really led by Group 14 Engineering, and consists of that kind of on-site engineering level, hands-on approach, again, for large multifamily and commercial buildings with really complex needs and systems. I think the last thing I want to mention there, very exciting, VEIC has brought on already 2 energy advisors that are local to the region. They are currently getting trained up on the job training and getting familiar with energy advising on some other programs that VEIC implements on the East Coast. We're excited to get these folks working on Powerhead Colorado. I think as soon as possible. We're having really great responses and inquiries in response to kind of our marketing and communication efforts that have launched and are well underway. And so to have these energy advisors start to kind of triage and connect these interested parties in the right resources until our full incentive launch is going to be very valuable. That's everything that I had. Yeah, thank you very much for listening to the kind of latest on the program design for incentives and energy advising. Very, very exciting to have this work continue to take shape. Thank you for letting me speak to you all about it, and certainly open to any feedback or questions that you might have.
Thank you, Luke. We just to echo what Luke said there, I think we're both very excited about that energy advising service. We're hoping that we're going to start to get some availability of those advisors sooner rather than later. And that's something we would love to start sharing out to this committee, so you can then reach your networks, your communities, start getting people in conversation, getting access to these technical resources, and kind of in the pipeline of work so we can direct them to the right place. I'm going to talk about some next steps for this group, but I did see a hand up. Chair Kondo, I'm happy to take that now.
I was wondering if we can do a little Q&A here. I see Mayor Douglas's hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Luke. I had a question. So on the midstream, are we talking about the midstream companies that receive gas into their facility, or could you explain that midstream?
Yeah, so midstream are the warehouses and companies that stock the heat pump technology. So those warehouses, we refer to those as midstream because they're kind of in the middle. They purchase it from the distributors, and they distribute it out, or the manufacturers, I'm sorry, and they distribute it out to the contractors.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that. And then does DRCOG work with Colorado Solar and Storage, COSS? DRCOG. They every year they have a conference, and all year they discuss when it comes to solar installation. And I'm trying to think who their new director is. Um, she was in Region 8. She also was
Casey Becker.
Casey Becker.
yeah, Casey Becker, yes. So, you know, having conversations with with that group, because they do tie in the solar and the heat pumps with different suppliers and contractors. So I didn't know if you guys currently working with them, or do you plan on working with that group?
We have been introduced and we are presenting to them next month. So
Really? Okay.
excited to make
All
that
right.
connection. Yeah.
Very good. Appreciate that. And then I'll wait to your that's my question for this portion, and then I have one for the next portion. Thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
comments or questions from the floor for Luke? Okay, back over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just, again, kind of appreciate that comment, Mayor Douglas. That synergy between a rooftop solar installation and a heat pump, especially for an all-electric home, is really important. We don't have, obviously, those incentives for solar, but we absolutely want to promote doing those together when it's possible. There's some really outsized potential grid benefits there. We have a friend that has solar and an all-electric home, and their utility bill they sent us a snapshot, it was like $10 from Excel Energy. So there's also those income qualified solar gardens and some other resources we're going to be tapping into, but it's a really good pairing. So appreciate that suggestion. Did want to address some next steps really for this group and for our committees. As Luke mentioned, we're in the middle of these one-on-one kind of key informant interviews. And we did have some great follow-ups from our technical committee, folks that really wanted to share their individual subject matter expertise as contractors and as program administrators. We'd like to invite anyone from this committee who's interested in providing some feedback and input in a more one-on-one channel to reach out to us. And we're happy to set that up with VEIC. Or if you have, of course, someone in your network who you think might be particularly valuable for us to talk to for one of those incentive types, either at the distributor or the contractor level, we'd love to hear from you there. We're currently, again, as Luke already talked about, really in the details of this incentive design process. There's a lot of nuance in each of these kind of modalities of incentive. And so we want to make sure that we are doing something that's responsive to the market, that's serving the needs of contractors and our community members, and has some flexibility in working with those utility programs like Excel Energy and the other programs that are available, like the ones through Colorado Energy Office. So the outcome of this, before we can get to that public launch, is that we will be bringing a policy that outlines how we will manage this process through the technical committee, through this committee, and then to the DRCOG board committee. So we want to prepare you for that a little bit with this presentation. That policy will probably look a little bit different than what you'll see from Greg and some of those other kind of more grant programs, because of one, the scale of incentives we're delivering into the market. We'll be working with many hundreds of customers and end users. And because of that flexibility we need to respond to the market and work with our other program partners, that policy is going to really describe kind of our approach to management, guardrails, controls that are in place, and these individual incentive types that Luke has outlined. So we're working on that currently, and we look forward to getting that in front of you all very soon for your review and approval. Next, I'll very quickly provide an update on our innovation program. This is something we covered in the last meeting with our committees and with this group. If you recall, we asked you for your feedback, ideas for kind of potential innovation programs. And Greg kind of alluded to this, but we're really excited to see the feedback loops start to emerge as we do these innovative pilots and learn how we can take these lessons and scale them up into policy. And when we say policy, we don't just mean building code and efficiency standards. We mean how we run programs either through Powerhead Colorado and other places around the state. So this is really a place where we can test and take those learnings and apply them other places. Quick overview again, this also is a separate program area and separate contract, all administered by VEIC, with a total of $6 million for the awards and their administration. We're anticipating, again, around 24 awards, somewhere averaging around 200,000. There will be a range for those. We're still working on kind of the number and that exact range, and that'll come with a future policy, but that just gives you kind of a reference for the average amount we expect here. Based on feedback from this committee and our technical committee, we have focused in on 3 tracks for the round 1 funding. We do anticipate doing a total of 3 rounds, so we have some ability to change and adapt after we make selections for the first round of funding. Those tracks are around reducing market friction and soft costs. So how do we make decarbonization faster, easier, and more affordable? Track 2 is technical and grid optimization. Again, echoing that vision that Greg talked about and the policy roadmap. How might we support efficient and affordable electrification in service of the customer, contractor, and the system? So that might look like grid responsive technologies, grid beneficial technologies, like energy stored in a heat pump water heater. And then the third track finally is community-based design, access, and health. So again, these are some pilot projects that might really help us show some of those benefits, going back to the comments from Mayor Douglas and others during Greg's presentation. These really can be pilots where we're showing innovation and impact on health and perceptions of health. Happy to take any questions on that or the full presentation. Of course, you're always welcome to reach out to us directly for follow-up or to set up some of those one-on-ones. Again, we're really grateful for Luke and for the VEIC team and the push we're doing to launch this and bring it out to the community. We're excited to share more with you all soon.
Okay, I am now opening the floor for any comments and questions. Mayor Douglas, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for that added portion of this presentation. Question, are we also, to help people out, just say someone decided to go forward with this and there was a residual amount, are we working with the Colorado Energy Finance Office? Because they have a, program when you're looking at putting efficient appliances or heat pumps and all that, they do have a low interest rate. Are we contemplating that? Contemplating?
I think yes, Mayor Douglas, we're connected with a couple different resources, including Collective Clean Energy Fund, which is formerly Colorado Clean Energy Fund. They have a kind of energy efficiency loan product, and we're actually partnering with them on some stakeholder engagement for a future on-bill repayment program. So that's one. Energy Outreach Colorado administers that solar garden program, which can offset bills. But I'm not sure if we're connected to the specific group you mentioned. So if you have a contact, we'd love to have an introduction there. I think
that one's a state funded, so that should be through the Colorado Clean Energy Fund website, which is tied to Colorado. So
okay, we have some good connections with them, so appreciate that. Yeah, even though we're not really offering the financing, I think that anything, again, going back to that no wrong door approach, anything we can kind of put in the customer's toolbox is great.
Sure. And
Thank you.
I keep seeing these advertisements, people see them all over. And I think it's a way for these contracts to get people, into their system, right? As much as $15,000 off, installation of heat pumps, right? And how realistic is that? So it'd be nice to know. I know we had this talk earlier and there was a presentation around cost and what that looks like, right? But as we get closer to implementing this program and getting those who like to participate, those are in need because of the struggle of high costs of energy and heating their home. Some don't even have proper heating elements as it is. How's that's going to scale out, right? What are the true incentives? And then after all said and done, what's the out-of-pocket cost?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
no. I was getting ready to turn my mic off so I can hear you.
We would love to provide some more backup on that when we come back kind of with incentive bounds. I will say it's very dependent on your utility right now. And the cost of a project is also very dependent on the home and the solution you install. So we did have a meeting with Colorado Energy Office folks this past week. And their program through the Inflation Reduction Act is offering some incentives around that, $14,000 or more level, which we've seen examples where that really means an upfront cost for a income qualified customer that's close to nothing, which is incredible. Our incentives will very likely not be at that same level because of our budget, because of our structure, but we want to push folks to that program to get the maximum. So I think we can provide a little more detail on how all these programs interact and where are the levers that we have some control over.
Okay. Yeah, we can have, if that can be clear and defined, so we don't confuse people because, some of them are going to think, hey, I saw this at 14. Now I got to pay 1,000 or 2,000 out of my pocket, right? And then there are like with Excel and United Power, they do offer heat pump rebates, and that's going to probably scale down either this year or next year. So, timing is everything, right? So, but thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilmember Bear.
Yeah, thank you for all these updates. I really appreciate just being able to stay in the know. I've been hearing rumblings of legislation that will be introduced to address the on-bill repayment. I'm just curious if this group is hearing about that and how that might interact with some of these grants and some of this work that we're doing here.
Thank you for the question. We are currently involved in there's a stakeholder engagement process that Collective Clean Energy Fund is leading, which is something like a 6 or 8 week process where they're bringing together program administrators. They're kind of working through program design details in anticipation of some of that legislative work, I believe. We did have a staff person there actually today during this call. So we're remaining very engaged in that, providing feedback. I think it's going to be a very useful resource for folks to finance that last bit of upfront funding after incentives. And if folks don't know what that structure is, essentially it's financing that is tied to your utility meter. So it stays attached to your home or the premise. When you sell the home, that payment is attached to your home and it shows up on your utility bill. So it solves a lot of the kind of customer frustrations and complications with traditional financing. It's a great best practice and product. So we're grateful to be in that stakeholder engagement process, and we want our advisors to get people connected to that, of course.
Yeah, that's great news. I'm glad to hear that you're right in the middle of it so that we can help develop that language. So that's great.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the floor? Okay, none being, I think we are finished with our discussion items for today. With that, I'm going to move into some administrative issues. One, any comments or issues from the committee for the good of the order? Okay, yes, Mr. Spots, go ahead.
I know I'm not on the committee, but we have not met since our launch, and I just wanted to spend one brief moment just kind of sharing the success of that launch. In fact, I'm going to take the liberty of just briefly giving you a tour of our website because we're so proud of it and the products there. So if you have not seen it, powerheadcolorado.org features our very cool art by local Firestone artist Brian. The name's escaping me, and you can kind of go in here and figure out how to plan a project. Still a work in progress, and the website will be improved shortly. But maybe to Mayor Douglas's point earlier, we do have calculators here, so you can kind of start on your journey and say, based on my income and my location, my utility, high level, what are the kind of rebates that are out there that are available to me? The next step you can do on our site, which we're really proud of, is go out and find a contractor. So this is our find a contractor tool. I will just put in my, well, whatever, and any zip code. You can specify what type of project you're looking for. I think this is one of the most powerful tools out there as part of this program right now. So based on an algorithm, based on your location, on how responsive the contractors are, it'll pull up these kind of cards for you to see. And you can really simply on any of these contractors see their Google reviews, see pictures of them. You can type in your address, how you prefer to be contacted. So if you like text messaging, you can prefer that. How urgent your project is. Like if your furnace is dead, it's really urgent. And specify some of what you're looking for. And then you can hit get in touch. It'll immediately, I don't want to do it because I don't want to bother this real contractor, but it'll pop up two more contractors immediately. And you can just send that same information to those two new contractors. So in literally less than 1 minute, rather than cold calling a contractor off a list, I could get quotes from 3 different contractors and have them reach out to me in the way I prefer. Obviously you can scroll down further. I am going to just open Heat Pump's profile because they've done a really good job. You can go in, you can see their service territory, you can see where they are licensed, you can see the services they offer, and you can even get in and see some of the jobs that they've completed. You can see really bespoke installations like that and puppies that get involved in the installation process. So just a really cool way to find contractors. And on the contractor side, I'm not going to log in and show you, but just so you know, we try to really incentivize these contractors to get in there. We highlight that this is obviously they get connected to those leads, but also that we have small business scaling programs, real humans that they can talk to, and up to $1,500 in training reimbursements they can get for registering on the contractor side. So I'll stop sharing there, and I see Mayor Douglas has his hand up.
Thank you very much for the information. Can you send that link out? That was kind of hard to see.
Of course.
Because it was so small.
Of course. We'll include it in a follow-up email, but it is powerheadcolorado.org, and you can find it all from there.
All right. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
Councilmember Bear.
I just want to say how awesome that website is. Like so easy to use. I want to send the town of Erie IT department over there in communications because this is how easy it should be to find what you're looking for when you get on a website. That's awesome. And also just wanted to highlight that I have been seeing Power Ahead Colorado commercials on during the Olympics and during different programs, and that's been exciting. I've never been part of something before that had a commercial, so that was great. So job well done, everybody.
And I'll pile on as well. I want to give props to Chris Selk and her team. Really wonderful to see an initiative that's so publicly visible. Of course, I've been bragging about it in council communications, but I'm not sure how many people really listen to that. I don't think a whole lot, except for the peanut gallery. But really getting the word out there has been really impressive, and I too am very proud to be part of this. Okay, now after all that love language, any other comments, questions, issues? Executive Director Rex, did you want to say any administrative sort of stuff or any?
I did,
word that you
Mr.
want to
Chairman,
drop?
if I may. Yeah, just real quickly. So for those, well, I don't know why you would know this, but so this is actually Chair Condo's last meeting. He's rolling off this committee. He's going to be vice chair of the DRCOG board, so he has other responsibilities, and I appreciate all his time he spent on here. So just so the oversight committee knows, so there'll be two new board members that will be participating here. So Director Bear and Director Spear will continue to be members of here. We also have two additional ones. Director Bailey from Mountain View will be one new member. And Mayor Douglas, another guy you might know, Director Dukes. He's also going to be on this committee. So I just wanted to share that with you all. That's all pending board approval next Wednesday night. But again, thank you, Chair Kondo. We really do appreciate it. And I haven't twisted his arm yet, but I'm planning on twisting it to make sure he stays on at least as an alternate. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Executive Director Rex. Appreciate that. Again, pleasure and an honor to serve on this board. And really, it's great work and it's really exciting. And I was just speaking with the staff about a personal experience that I had in January where it just underscored the impacts of climate change, even 7,000 miles away from here. Some of you know that I went all the way down south to the Antarctic. So definitely it drives that point home. With that, I do want to say that the next meeting will be again virtual on March 13th, Friday. And I will, at this point at 11:42, give you about 18 minutes back. And oh, wait, Mr. Spots, go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
I'm sorry. I also wanted to flag that this is Cam Kennedy's last meeting. Cam has accepted a new position with the federal government. So we just really appreciate Cam's work for us here throughout the last year. We would not be here without him. So thank you very much, Cam. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Cam.
All right. Congratulations. The federal government. You're working your way up. Hopefully you can drive some positive change and more efficiency in a more humane
I'll do my
manner
best.
burn.
Thank you.
Okay. Now with that, I will declare this meeting adjourned. So thanks and have a great weekend. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Be safe.